being official selection filmmakers for this year's Burbank International Film Festival. And I will tell you that it is a very competitive festival to get into, so I hope you all are very proud of yourselves and excited. I know we are very excited to see all of your lovely films screening in September, but we are going to kick off tonight. I'm going to introduce our incredible moderator. Katie Keane received her BFA and MFA in acting, and after graduation, she appeared regularly with Shakespeare Orange County. Soon after making the transition from stage to screen, she landed the series' regular role of Audie Gallagher on ABC Family's Ruby and the Rockets. A working actor for over 20 years, Katie has recurred and guest starred on over 30 TV shows, including How I Met Your Mother, Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., and Prison Break. She appeared in the global hit film My Name is Khan, starring Shah Rukh Khan, and co-starred in the Blumhouse Amazon thriller The Manor opposite Oscar nominee Barbara Hershey. Katie was encouraged to write her first TV spec script, Stripper Moms, I love the title by the way, by Tom Lennon and Ben Garrett, Reno 911, A Night at the Museum. That sample led to her next project, Step Girlfriends, about the nightmare of raising her boyfriend's kids, which was optioned for development by CBS Studios with Katie attached as EP, alongside Eric Tenenbaum, Two and a Half Men, and Lauren Gus's Dexter. She then wrote the dark comedy pilot, Cancerous, about a woman in small-town Kansas dealing with breast cancer, under the supervision of EP's Linda Wallum, Nurse Jackie, and rock music legend, Melissa Etheridge. Katie's first feature, Rosé All Day, another great title, starring Grammy nominee Jenna Ushkovitz, am I saying that properly? Okay, great. Glee, and Brianna Cuoco, Dead Boy Detectives, and directed by Marla Sokolov. It won Best Comedy at the Sunscreen Film Festival and was distributed by Vertical Entertainment. She is currently finishing up an adult action comedy, which is Goonies for grown-ups, and it's for producer Rick Alvarez, Scary Movie, and White Chicks. Most recently, Katie wrote and is co-producer of the feature Family Tree, based on an original idea by TV and film legends William Shatner and Tom Bergeron, who serve as EPs. It was optioned by Village Road Show, and her comedy feature, Pony Up, is currently being shopped with EP Robin Snyder attached. Katie also teaches acting and career development at UCLA with the professional program for acting for the camera. She is a very impressive woman. Our moderator for tonight, Katie Keane.
That was lovely. I felt so bad for you during that, though. I was starting to get a little sweaty under the armpits. I'm not gonna lie. Okay, we're gonna have a great night tonight. We have so many amazing guests. Some are my personal friends, some are people that I'm meeting for the first time, and I know by the end of tonight we're all gonna be in love. So, Gary Sargent is gonna speak to us a little bit first. Gary is the co-founder and CTO of Simple DCP. This is something I know nothing about, so I'm so thrilled that he is here to explain it to me and to you. It's a company that has served as a trusted partner to independent filmmakers for over a decade. Under his technical leadership, the company's become a leading resource for digital cinema mastering and theatrical exhibition, specializing in the delivery of high-quality DCPs to festivals and cinemas worldwide. So, Garrett, I'm going to let you talk a little bit about your mission instead of reading it off of here, and just talk a little bit about what exactly your company does and what excites you, and I just want to know what exactly digital cinema packaging is all about. So I'll hand that over to you.
Hi, thank you. So yeah, Simple DCP, we've been around for over a decade now, and working to help people get their films on screen. And I mean, that's all it really is making sure that you can get your film onto the big screen. Digital cinema is not a new format at this point. But when we got started, yeah, it was very inaccessible to the majority of people. And even today, it causes some confusion about what it is, how it can be best utilized, and what it is that you need to do to get the most out of it. So we're based in Burbank. Our offices are over on Alameda Avenue, where we have, all of our technicians are working there to get things translated, but we also have an 18-seat Dolby Atmos certified theater that allows our clients to come in, review their films, see it for the first time on the big screen for most of them, and really get the chance to know exactly what it is that it's going to look like, what it's going to sound like, and help them kind of overcome some of the challenges that come from the translation from viewing it on your laptop screen with a set of earbuds to really, picking it up and seeing it on the big screen with a full sound system.
Thank you. So what are some of those challenges? You said help them overcome some of the challenges of going from laptop to big screen. Like, what does that mean? What are the most common challenges that you aid in?
The biggest one by far is sound. I think that everybody is, we're all kind of now used to this WYSIWYG world where, what you see is what you get when you throw it up onto the web, when you listen to it on, on a TV screen at home. You have the ability to adjust things to listen to it the way that you prefer to, but you don't have that opportunity in the cinema. The cinema is set to calibrated levels. You have to make certain that when you are delivering it there, that you're going to meet their presets. And we want to make certain that when you get your content in, you're taking advantage of what it's like in a cinema. When you're delivering stuff for web, for broadcast and things, there are really strict technical specifications you need to meet. It needs to be below a certain level. You can't you can't go beyond a certain dynamic range. In cinema, you have the ability to fully explore that, and that can be anything from A Quiet Place to any Christopher Nolan movie that you've ever seen. So from Dead Quiet to the loudest thing that you've ever heard in your life, and it's not easy to do that without having access to the facilities, to the equipment, to be able to properly prepare that. So we try to make that accessible.
I can continue to ask questions as I will throughout the evening, but I'd really much rather come out and hear from you guys. So please, as you have a question, if you would just pop your hand up, I will come out and grab you. If I don't see anyone, I'll continue to ask my own questions, but don't be shy. Like, raise them up. You have questions. I'd rather hear from you. So I know you were an editor. How did that inform the work that you do now, if it did at all?
Mostly from a technical perspective, when any more to be in post-production in any creative capacity, you are a technician, you are an IT professional, you are probably taking things from beginning to end on the entire project. That was not the case when I was first getting started. There was still a lot more specificity in everybody's job because it was so involved. But now you do need to know all of it. With the way that we actually got started is that when I was cutting a documentary in New York, and we were it was about one of the survivors of the Virginia Tech shootings. At the time, there was a competing film that was that everybody knew was getting ready to be released through HBO. So our film got zero traction. We weren't able to find buyers. We weren't able to get into film festivals. It was an election year, and I think that Romney was talking about firing big birds, so nobody really wanted to touch the subject matter either. And our director decided, well, why don't we try to qualify it for the Academy Awards? And we said, sure, let's throw whatever at the wall and see if it sticks. To do so at the time, you either needed a digital cinema package or 35mm film print, and we opted for the digital route. It was new, it felt accessible, but extremely complicated, not very well documented. And so we went for it. We did our four-walling at IFC Center in New York City. Didn't think about it for a couple of months, and then came back after a couple of months, and it had been shortlisted. So at the time, we didn't even know what to necessarily do with it, but suddenly we had all of the film festivals that weren't paying us mind, wanted to have the film again. We were able to find distribution for it, and it was all because we had taken the steps to, try to make it into something bigger than we thought it was, that it warranted. And and it made a lot of sense, especially because for that film in particular, it wasn't trying to really surprise anybody. It was not trying to take anybody on any sort of unexpected turns. It was a conversation piece. It was an attempt to talk to people about common sense gun reform from somebody who was, not only an authority on the subject, but who had been on the receiving end of gun violence. And so being able to take that to theaters and talk to people who wouldn't have otherwise been inclined to participate in any discussions on that film, it made a huge difference to its reception.
You've worked on a lot of projects over the years. Like, do you have one in particular that really stands out that you feel like you really made a big difference in, or the opposite, it was a huge disaster? Like, we love both ends of the spectrum, the disaster stories and the ones that really feel like a huge accomplishment. Is there one that stands out in your mind?
Obviously, like the cool ones are the ones where you get to see people not only succeed but then grow in their career. So I think, gosh, it wasn't too long after we got started, we actually did Sean Baker's Tangerine. And I had to QC that one, and I had to stop it a few times and take a walk around the building going, what am I watching? But it was amazing. And he came in and, we got to chatting about that, and he told us stories about, if you're not familiar with the film, it's about transgender prostitutes in Hollywood on Christmas and their kind of adventure that they go on. And neither of the two actresses were, professional actresses. And so when, they brought them into the sound booth, they were telling stories that were, just out of this world and making, it felt really real, and you were watching and, feeling something that was gonna take shape and, go places. And so of course Sean is, now where he's at, and he's advocating for more people to go to theaters using his platform. So that was really incredible. Disaster cases, it's I can't say that we have too many disasters. Very interesting people that come through our doors all the time. We work with Tommy Wiseau, and he is that dude. He is, that's who he is, and he's a really cool, generous guy. I've never met somebody who's gotten up on stage at the Oscars through just sheer force of will like him. So for, despite being the subject of the disaster artist, I think he's anything but.
Yeah. Love that. Yeah.
It's funny talking into a microphone to you when I'm like 2 feet from you. It feels really penetrating. It feels very penetrating. Garrett, thank you so much for coming. One question I would have for you would be really a question for, I think, hopefully the people behind me, which is, all right, so someone's done a film, bring it to you for a DCP. What do you feel like are the most common mistakes you've seen filmmakers make, especially on the smaller scale, short films and whatnot, that you feel like could easily be, if not avoided, at least considered before they ever step foot into your office?
I think the number one thing starts with the budget and understanding where you're allocating things along the line, because it kind of becomes really obvious if you've ever seen that Key and Peele sketch where they're shooting a music video and you watch the budget kind of click down over time, and it finally gets to that end goal, and it switches from professional production to GoPros in the guy's backyard. Like, you can see that in a lot of productions. It's just like, oh, here's where you ran out of money. That's not to say that it's like that happens in production quite that way. But it's, we see people throw a lot of resources at, doing production in the most sophisticated, well-meaning way possible, and then, they miss the mark on post. So stuff that is, I had somebody shooting with, really star talent and using great cameras, but has not invested the same amount into their sound equipment. Or who get to the color phase, and we say, well, we'll put a lot on it, and that'll work. And so being able to kind of map out the entire process. I know production is the most exciting, fun part of it, but making certain that you're giving that investment the best legs possible through your entire process. And then the same goes for everything that happens after post. Is just the marketing and getting people to come and see your film. So, this is, like coming to festivals like this is a vital process to make certain that you're not only, making the extra effort to get in front of people to have them see your film, but to engage with an audience and figure out who your audience is. I've kind of deviated from the question a little bit there, but all kind of together. From our standpoint, our big thing is that we just want the highest quality version of your film possible. And so, yeah, that can be a little bit, trickier sometimes. It might mean, bringing on your editor for, another day or two to make certain things are ship-shaped, wrapped up. It might mean, having to throw it on a drive and schlep it across town or mail it into us, but the results are significantly better if you can go that, make that little extra effort to get that in. If you're, we take it from anything that you can give us. We'll accept MP4s even sometimes, and it's we'll make it work. But if you really want it to look good on on the big screen, like I said, just getting us something that is going to be that huge file that'll ultimately go the extra mile.
I love that. That's great. Yeah.
Does every large theater require DCPs? And also, like, if you send your film overseas to a foreign theater, are they going to accept a DCP you guys make, or is it just in the U.S.?
So the first question is, does every theater require it? No, but that depends on the theater. If you're, some places will let you hook in a laptop, they'll let you play through other means, but it usually requires somebody to be there to manage that. And, more and more theaters are getting automated. They're getting run by people who aren't even on site. I think it's kind of remarkable. There are actually very few projectionists out there still. And the majority of commercial theaters are being, run from behind, the snack counter really. So it's delivering on digital cinema helps it all work with one unified system so that it can be operated from anywhere by anybody in a way that they know and trust it will work. And that leads into the second question, which is, is it universal, basically? If you're working with D-Cinema in the United States, it works. Overseas, it works anywhere. It's a SMPTE-defined standard for mastering and packaging, and you only need to worry about making certain that you're not deviating from what the best technical recommendations are there. So 24 frames per second, which has been our standard for a century. That's your best bet. There are more places that can play, your 25, 30 frames per second stuff anymore, but you're going to be hard pressed to find anybody who's playing, HDR or 4K. 4K is getting much more wide adoption now, but if you stick to the most by the book stuff, it'll be playable anywhere.
All right, so I'm going to introduce these guys, and then I'm going to wander out there because I'm sure you're all going to have a plethora of questions for them. We are so excited to have Deborah Puette. She is a queer writer, director, and actor and producer who works consistently in film, TV, and theater. Deborah draws on her eclectic life experiences to tell stories centering sharply on observed female and LGBTQ characters, claiming space in places that traditionally tell them to stay the F out. So I first met Deborah last year around this time, and she immediately impressed me. She came up to me after a panel and said, will you come see my film, Cash for Gold? It was screening at last year's festival, and Deborah managed to do something that pretty much no one in this town ever does, and she got me to leave my house after 6 o'clock. And I went to the film, and I was so blown away and so impressed by what she was able to do. She starred in it, she produced it, she wrote it. She's a powerhouse and an amazing human being, and I'm so thrilled that she is here with us. We've got a lot more credits that I could list off for her, but we'll get to those. We'll get to them. Why? I did the first one so brilliantly. Nikki Boyer is a 3-time two-time Emmy award-winning host, actress, producer, and podcaster, best known as the creator of Dying for Sex, the hit Wondery podcast that won the 2021 Ambie Awards for Podcast of the Year. It has since been adapted into a television series for FX, now streaming on Hulu, starring Michelle Williams and Jenny Slate, with Emmy winner Liz Merriweather and Kim Rosenstock as the showrunners. Nikki is the EP and also appears in the series. So I've known Nikki forever. We're very, very dear friends. She has a lot more credits that I could list off.
So boring.
They're not. They're so important. But what I would say is, please ask personal questions, because we'll probably forget that you all are here and end up like dishing dirt on like each other. So feel free to ask her very personal things. No, but one of the reasons I wanted both Nikki and Deborah to be here is because they do what I scream from the rooftops at my UCLA classes whenever I talk to young actors, and that is create your own material. Don't wait for someone to give you opportunity. Go out there and make it happen for yourself. And these two are living proof of that. And I think it's a really interesting conversation that we're going to get into in a little bit, which is, when do you walk away from a project you created? Because I know we have actors out here that want to be in their own material. And when do you die on that cross and say, nope, I am in this, or nobody is in this? And I think that these two are going to have some great insight on that, and I'm thrilled that they're both here. And then we have my newest friend, Jason. I just met him tonight. But he is a great manager, and I can tell this because we spoke for 5 minutes at the bar. And within those 5 minutes, he convinced me not to go to veterinary school and to stay in the business, and that there still was hope. So I'm like, you're totally a manager. He's great at what he does. He is the CEO of First Story Entertainment, which he founded in 2018. The lit management company represents a diverse roster of talented writers and directors with fresh voices in all genres for film and TV. In the feature space, First Story clients have written films starring Robert De Niro and John Malkovich, sold specs to Searchlight Pictures and Sony International, and had scripts selected for the prestigious annual Blacklist. This is good. I was like, ooh, I want stories from this time period. Prior to starting First Story, Jason was a seasoned development executive. He worked at Linda Obst Productions as the head of development. So we want some stories from that time period for sure. So let's just welcome all of our panelists. Thank you guys so much for being here. I know we have a lot of questions. I have a lot of questions. I'd like to start off, though, by just giving you each an opportunity to briefly talk about kind of the trajectory of your career and how you got to this place, and kind of what, we'll stop it there, and we'll have part two after you get through that. Okay.
I started as an actor and did just that for a long time. And then I wrote a short film, 6 minutes long, and it went around to festivals in 2013. It was starred me and one other person. It was the first thing I ever wrote as a script. And people liked it, and every festival they were like, this is a feature, right? And I was like, fuck no. I was like, I'm an actor. I'm just trying to get acting jobs. But I was encouraged to do that thing, and I went to class. I started studying. I learned, I had experience like in structure, having looked at so many scripts as an actor, but really it's a different thing when you sit down to write one. And I finally had a script that got a lot of attention from Franklin Leonard's Blacklist. It was not up on the Blacklist, to be clear. He came across it and started helping to promote me and it. And nothing happened, I just want to say this, nothing happened specifically with him or that, but it was that little sparkle of somebody outside my circle saying, you're good at this, and other people should see it too. When you hear those things, like, pay attention, that's a little bit of gold to put in your pocket, because it's a hard road, right? We ended up getting that film made. It's called Cash for Gold, and if you have questions about when do you say, like, walk away, I starred in that movie, I wrote it, co-directed it. There were times when other people wanted to take it, buy it, we can talk about that if that's interesting to anybody. But anyway, it came here to Burbank and many other festivals. It won the Audience Award here. And now I am much more interested in writing and directing than I am in acting. I mean, I sort of act to pay bills. So that's the little kernel of mine. Yeah?
Yeah.
I think I'm an example of like, I don't know what I do, and then you kind of finally figure it out as you age. And so I just want to welcome everyone who feels like they're just throwing shit at the wall to see what sticks, or they don't quite understand the full trajectory of where they're going, is that sometimes the road is very windy, and you just have to follow your gut. I think I'm a pretty great example of like, I was a host, I did cartoons, and I was a commercial actress, and then I wanted to be a theater actress, and then I decided I wanted to do TV, but I sucked at auditioning, and no one would hire me, and then I just kept coming back to storytelling. And if it's a story that you feel like lives in your soul, you know you have to tell it, and you don't ever get tired of telling it. And so you always come back to center, and sometimes it's hard to find center, right? Because everything gets loud and noisy. So I think my purpose of being here is to say, follow your gut, stay in tune with yourself. Don't get excited by the things that seem flashy and exciting, like a Geico commercial. Because that like will pay your rent for like 6 months. But I think what I'm here to say is just like always come back to center, always come back to storytelling. And if you know what types of stories that you will go to the grave wanting to tell, then, and that sounds very dramatic, but dying for sex was dramatic and people die, right? So anyway, that's depressing. But I think if you can just come back to that center place within yourself of like, what story do you have to tell? If you can always have one of those little nuggets, like a nugget, then you can find your way through the windy road. Did that make any sense?
Yeah.
Okay, all right, next.
Hi, I'm Jason. So I've just always been very passionate about storytelling. Growing up, I read a lot. I'd write short stories. I'd act, and I made a movie about George Washington in 5th grade. Played it in class, and my teacher goes, "This is how Steven Spielberg started." And I was like, I can be Steven Spielberg. I'm Jewish and young. I came out here, went to USC Film School, Fight On. When I was graduating, I kind of was graduating in 09, taking whatever job I could get. Ended up with a job at Lionsgate. And was there for 7.5 years, worked for the head of physical production TV, worked for the CEO as his assistant, was a junior creative exec on the movie side. Left in 2017, ended up working for Linda Opes as her head of development, which was a very tough gig. And kind of as I was leaving, trying to figure out what I want to do next, I was like, oh, I've done the big company, I've done the small company, and a production company. The management side was going to be a little bit more of a means to an end. And when I started doing it, I just really fell in love with it. I was like, I'm putting all this time and energy into crafting this person's journey and their work and kind of introducing them to the town. And everything is a jumping off point, I think, in this business. I think that's something to really take to heart. And as a manager, I'm betting on the individual as opposed to the specific project. And so I care less about whether this person buys my client's script or movie or whatever. I just want you to love them and want to work with them. And I think that worked really well for me as someone who's always trying to just connect the people who should be working together. And so now it's been 6.5 years, and this business is continuing to evolve, and I'm exploring other parts of the business, whether it's AI, whether it's verticals, whether it's all these different forms of distribution and creation that creators and artists are working on these days, because I think you do have to be kind of at the forefront of where the industry is going, but at the core of it, it's continuing to work with storytellers and continuing to craft the material that they get out there.
I think sometimes, and I think all three of you guys can speak to this, it feels a bit overwhelming to start out, right? It feels a little bit overwhelming. Like, you didn't just go in and EP dying for sex. This was a incredibly long journey. And I think now more than ever, the path is very different, right? Like, there can be so many paths to get to that end result. Now more than ever, it can evolve in almost any way you can think of. So I think for both of you, and then also Jason following up with like your clients and the different paths that they've taken to success, to maybe just talk a little bit specifically about, because I know Cash for Gold has a wonderful origin story in terms of how that developed, and I know that Dying for Sex has a pretty amazing story. So would you guys just share a little bit more about how long it took to get those projects done, how they started, what the first steps were? That would be great.
In 2011, I was crazy frustrated, and I wrote that short film out of just, I was like, I'm gonna write something, and I have a great manager who I've been with for a long time, and this is another thing, like you just gotta like find your people, and he is the kind of like, let's just do it, we're gonna shoot this, I like it, we're gonna shoot it, and we did, and we shot it in one day for like 10 grand, all in, and went around to festivals, and when people, I think what I've learned from this experience, because if you asked me in 2011 if I thought I would have a produced feature on Amazon, Apple, wherever you can buy movies, I would have thought that was crazy. But I luckily had people in my life who were like, dream fucking bigger. Like, stop being afraid. And so it was 2011 I wrote that short. By the time it was in festivals, it was 2013. By the time I had the draft that got attention of the feature, it was 2017. We shot in 2022, and it was released this year. So that is 13, 14 years. These things, they can happen faster, for sure, and I did many, many things in between. But I think when you know you have something that you have to see through, I have years of journals where it's like, this is the year Cash for Gold gets made. This is the year Cash for Gold gets made. And like, you kind of have to be a little bit of a lunatic. And so that was the timeline on which it happened. And I will just quickly say, we did have someone who wanted to buy the script. There was an Oscar-winning actress who wanted to play my part. And I said no because I knew that the odds that script would maybe go into development hell, sit on a shelf, never get made, were much higher than I knew the odds I could get it made myself for a price with me in it, as long shot as that was, were probably better than that film ever getting made if I sold it. So you just have to kind of listen to your gut. And I knew I was taking a gamble and maybe it would never get made, but I got lucky, I guess. That was a trajectory of that piece.
Yeah. Wow.
I think 13 years. 13, that's a long time.
Yeah.
Right? The beauty of ideas is that they come to you and you don't know when they're going to hit. But with Dying for Sex, it was just, I mean, if it wouldn't have been for Molly, I don't know if has anybody even seen Dying for Sex?
Oh my God, watch this show, you guys! It's so good.
So just to give it some context, if you haven't seen it, it's about my best friend who was diagnosed with stage 4 breast cancer, decided to leave her marriage and go on a sexual journey to discover what she wanted out of life. So when that happened and she revealed to me that she was leaving her husband and that she was going to live about 4 blocks from me, the first thing I said was, we should make a show about this. Not like, I'm so sorry, your marriage is falling apart, this is a lot, I can't believe the cancer's back. It was like, no, we have to do something with this. And it immediately lit a fire under the both of our butts because we had always been looking for something to work on together. And it was kind of an excuse for friendship, right? When you're like, well, we're working, right? And we would do 6-hour lunches and have these times when we really were sifting through her life. And it started in 2016. And here we are. And I can't do math. It's 2025. Huck, how many years is that?
9 years.
Thank you. So long time, right? Obviously there was COVID, a writer's strike, and a lot happened, but there's always going to be some version of that getting in the way of your goal. Maybe not, right? It could be fast-tracked. We don't know. We never know, right? But I think my point of saying that is that a lot happened within that time frame of me trying other avenues and trying to tell other stories But they all came back to that nugget of what types of stories do I want to tell. And I kind of went through a little bit of a boot camp working on Dying for Sex, of understanding like, what hill will I die on? When Molly and I first had this idea, we pitched it. We went to New York. We met with production companies. They were like, yes, it's Sex in the City. And we were like, not really. I mean, I love Sex in the City. It's great. But we were like, no, it's deeper, it's darker, it's more introspective. And finally, we kept trying to figure out how to tell the story. And then we realized we just needed to create some IP, whether that was getting our voices, getting video, something. And we just started to record. And we didn't really fully know what we were doing. But we knew it was story-based. We knew it had to have a beginning, a middle, and an end, all right? And we just started recording. So I think my advice through all of this process is just do something. Do something tangible, get something on tape, get something on video, so there's something to prove of your idea versus just an idea that you sit down and tell somebody across the table. Show that you're the people that need to tell this particular story. Podcast became successful, started meeting with amazing showrunners, and then it sort of took off from there. But I think my point is, and Kate, thank you for bringing me back to it, is that like, just get in a room and press record on something. I don't care what it looks like, if it's writing a journal or a blog or a website or a MySpace page. Does anybody even know what that is? Yeah, I'm like 400. Get it down on paper, and I just really want to encourage anybody that has an idea to get it documented somehow, and that's how Dying for Sex started.
But I would say imposter syndrome is real in this town and never goes away, no matter how high up you go, and so don't think you're unique, like that. Don't think that you're the only one that's feeling that. That's something that's, I think, a persistent thing. So just get over it. I think something I've realized, and I say that, like, just doing the thing is like 90% of it, and the number of people who just never put, and I guess no one's pen to paper, but no one just writes the script, no one just makes the movie, no one just sends the email. That's the one that's always the most shocking to me. They like meet someone and then they don't even follow up. So I think just the point of a first draft is for it to exist, and I think that gets you 90% of the way there, and then from there it's just continuing to push forward and get it through. I would say the one thing with my clients, like the things we're always very focused on, is what is the end goal, right? If you want to be a showrunner, you want to be a studio filmmaker, you want to be the next Sean Baker, whatever. Have that kind of goal in mind, and then we're creating a path that tries to get you there. Or if we at least know kind of ultimately what we're trying to do, you can make the decisions that come your way. You're like, does this get me closer to that? And I think it's a marathon, it's not a sprint, it's not gonna happen. Well, it will happen overnight, but everyone's a 10-year overnight success. And it's the moment where FX comes and goes, yeah, we want to make this, right? And then boom. But the number of things that you had to do that work, and you had to do all these amazing, all these little steps along the way to get to that point, I think is where some people are just like, well, it's not the studio movie I want to do. It's like, well, yeah, you got to do kind of a lot of things before you get to the point.
Yeah, thank you for saying that too. I like that end goal, and that's all amazing. And I just wanted to piggyback on what you were saying though about I'd love to hear more about the process, especially from like a writing perspective. Like once you like sold the show and maybe had a showrunner, what was that like? Was there a lot of rewrites? How involved were you in the writer's room? And did you have a say in a lot of that? I'm just curious.
No, that's a great question. I didn't know what the rules were. To be a non-writing EP is a very interesting position to be. You create something, you have it, like it's in your body, it's part of your life, and then you're not technically the writer. And I didn't want to be a writer. I'm an actress, a producer, a storyteller, and I'm not a writer, right? But I deeply wanted to be involved in the writing part of it. So I think my best advice is, and I don't ever really take this advice in my life except for this one time, which was patience, right? Like be really patient with the process, because once I got a showrunner. And I want the imposter syndrome, which Jason, I'm so glad you said that. I have it right now, like while I'm talking to you. Like it doesn't ever go away. And when I was sitting in the meetings, meeting showrunners after the podcast had been released, I was going to these meetings dressed up, decked out, like fully decked out, and everyone else was in jeans. And I'm pitching them the idea, and finally Wondery says, "You're not pitching them, they're pitching you." And I was like, so up until I was like still pitching. I was like, and then the friends do this, and they're like, well, no, we're pitching you our idea of being a showrunner. So up until the very end of the game, I was still having full-on imposter syndrome. And it was much later in the game when I realized like where my place was. And it's a dance, right? You have to show your value. You have to show you're not going to cross boundaries and lines, and that you're going to be a good collaborator, and that you're not going to pick 15 things, 15 hills to die on, that you're going to find your places to fight for. And I feel like I could give really good advice about how to do that dance from a place of just patience. Just breathe, have the conversation, and show them that you want to be in collaboration with them, and that you're not taking everything so deeply and personally. And this was my life story. But having said that, we had created the podcast prior, so we had already sunk our teeth deeply into our story. So our story had already been told. So I was okay sort of passing the torch because it was a new version of the story. So that gave me the confidence to say, we've done our part, now we can pass it on to the beautiful women that helped tell the story. So that had a lot to do with it. Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah, thank you for the question.
And I'll get back here. And my favorite part of Dying for Sex, if you haven't seen it, please watch it. Nikki, and I don't think she'd mind me saying this, hates Shakespeare. I'm a huge Shakespeare fan. I love Shakespeare, like that's my jam. If there's one thing Nikki hates, it's Shakespeare. And the showrunners decided to make her character in Dying for Sex a Shakespearean actress. So the Nikki character in the show is like reciting Shakespearean monologues in the hospital room, and like can't get enough of that Shakespeare. So that made me giggle.
Do you have everything in your bag? You still have everything in your bag?
That's really funny. So in the show, the giant bag that Jenny Slate, so there's this giant bag that Jenny Slate carries around as my character that's like got high school trophies and muffins and nothing that she needs in it and everything she doesn't want. And I was like, that is so different than me. I am so not that girl. And my husband's like, have you seen your desktop of your computer? Nothing is labeled. There's no folders. Everything's just documents, and they're all literally. It's like document QRTY. He's like, what's that? I'm like, I don't know what that is. He's like, you are that. That is your bag. So I think going back to your question as well, is that like you have to let go of your control and just let the story be told. Because I do believe Dying for Sex took liberties, and I'm so grateful they did, because it allowed somebody else to take the paintbrush and paint the painting. And sometimes you need to know when to pass the brush.
I have a question for Nikki and also one for Jason. Nikki, as far as, can you talk about when you got in to pitch your show to where it got picked up? And Jason, what are your pet peeves that you can impart for the writers on when they're trying to find representation?
Ooh. I think one of the things that always makes my eyes glaze over is when I ask like what you write or what do you create, what's your filmmaking interests, and they go everything, as if my second question was, I need a writer. And are you a writer? So then you'll write the thing that I'm apparently going to ask you to write. And I think a lot of people, they do it because it's like they think they're pre-passing on an opportunity. And I think especially more and more as we kind of value authenticity in so many specific types of stories, they're looking for the right writer. They're looking for the right filmmaker. They're not just looking for someone who has final draft. And so, but don't run away from your voice, your style, your interests, because I think that's what makes you interesting. Like when someone goes, I just want to write multicams, hard, funny comedies. I'm like, ooh, like tell me more about that, because it says you kind of have thought a lot about what you create, and you're going to be specialized and hopefully an expert. I think that's one. I'll think of other ones.
I want to point out with the pitching process how unique it is. Like, I have to say that Katie and I and Katie's husband Kevin, who's also my business partner, because we keep everything in the family. let's just keep it all together. We pitched a show called Step Girlfriends. How many times? Like
2,400 times.
Yes.
Probably.
Right. In every room with amazing human beings, and there is no way I would have had the balls to do what I did with Dying for Sex if it wouldn't have been for my experience with Step Girlfriends. So I feel like when things don't get picked up or things don't get traction, you're always learning little lessons along the way and building your confidence and just a little bit of integrity and your self-esteem and shedding some of that imposter syndrome, although it never goes away. But when I was pitching Dying for Sex, I pitched it 1,000,000 times off of a one-sheeter, and it wasn't until we sat down and started recording that I got really clear about what the pitch was. And I'm going to tell the story very quickly, but it's super powerful and I think very moving because it shows you that you should always follow up on an email. Because I reached out to a man that I had met 10 years ago who was the CEO of Wondery, Hernan Lopez, a great storyteller. He's the reason Dying for Sex even happened. Molly was dying, and I thought, if I don't get this podcast out before she dies, I won't be okay with this. So I thought, oh gosh, I know that guy from that podcast company. I'm going to email him with the 10 episodes and say, hey, let's take a meeting really quick. Because I knew she was dying if I didn't release it. So I was getting ready to put it up on YouTube, right? Because I didn't know what else to do. So I sent him an email and he never responded. And I was sitting in my car getting ready to go into my house to go just upload all these episodes on YouTube and say, they're out in the world. Like, look, they're there. And I said, I think I'm going to follow up on that email. And so I reached back out to him and I said, hey, don't know if you ever received this, but I'm going to release these episodes tomorrow morning. And he responded within 5 minutes and said, June, oh, I just got the chills. Oh, don't release them. Come into my office. And I sat down with him and I told him Molly's story. And he met her 2 weeks later at her hospital bed on Valentine's Day and said, I will help tell your story. And once you are gone, this story will somehow live on. So my point of being emotional and dramatic right now is to say, just follow up on the email, be the squeaky wheel, don't be afraid to be desperate, like just keep pounding the pavement, and something may happen and something may not, but at least you can go to bed knowing, like, I did everything that I could, and I'm so grateful that it went down that way. So that one email would have changed, like, everything. So, yeah, thanks, sorry.
To apologize for. It's a great story, and I think just another example of, hey, let me just see what I can do with this, right? Like, you were like, I'm gonna go, and I'm sure you guys have felt this when you're really like, okay, universe, fuck it, I'm going down this path. Nothing else is happening. I'm fucking going down this path, and then the email dings, and something else happens that shoots you down another direction. And but I think that kind of stuff tends to happen when we are putting out into the universe, like, I could go this way, or I could go that way, or I could go that way, right? Like, it feels like that's when that stuff happens, right? Not when you're putting all of your hope in one. Like, if you were sitting there staring at your computer screen, waiting for him to email you back, it's like, no, you're creating momentum. You are doing whatever you can do. If it's putting it up on YouTube, then you're gonna do it. But something happened that took it down another path, thankfully. Please raise your hands if you have anything and I'll come and get to you. But really quick, Deborah, I very much come from a place of using my childhood, my chaotic, eclectic childhood in pretty much everything that I write. I think that it is something that I feel like, especially when you come from a place of shame, kind of being authentic with your experiences is very powerful, and I think that it has a way of, my favorite Mr. Rogers quote is, when it's mentionable, it's manageable, and that's kind of what guides my writing, is like, I'm just gonna put it all out there. Like, if I've gone through it, somebody else will connect to what I'm saying. And those are the pieces that I'm the most proud of. And I just know that, like, your most recent, is it Such a Pretty Girl?
Yeah.
maybe just talking a little bit as a writer, like how much of you do you put in, because I know Cash for Gold was very personal and came from a personal place, and this next one comes from a very personal place. When Nikki and I were doing Step Girlfriends, it can be a little bit scary because we were being pretty brutally honest with some things that maybe not everybody would respond to. Yeah, and so what's the line where you go, gosh, how much of myself do I put out there? And especially if that's going to affect other people, right? I talk to writers about this all the time, where it's like, if I write this script that kind of shows what an asshole my dad was, if this gets made, what's going to come back to me? Like, is this going to be okay? Do I do a sanitized version of this? Or do I put the real truth out there because that's what my authentic story is? And how do you navigate that in your stories?
Well, first I'll say that Anne Lamott, who's one of my favorite writers, who's written a book that every writer should read and have at their bedside called Bird by Bird, she says that if people don't want bad stories told about them, they should have behaved better in the first place. So I stand like...
Okay, never mind. Forget it.
Yeah.
Fuck 'em all.
Like, don't be
Do
a
it.
fuck up then, okay? And I won't tell your story. My next project, which is a short that is currently in festivals and which I'm developing into what will be my next feature, is called Such a Pretty Girl, and it is based on the relationship I had, the triangle, with my daughter, who is trans, and my father, who is very conservative Catholic. And he refused to acknowledge her transition, died without knowing her as she is. And, you know, here's the thing. I am not attracted to trauma, although I've had plenty of it. I am attracted to hope and to change. And I was like, my poor dad. You know, this guy died without knowing this magical, amazing, funny, smart human being. And so I decided to write a television pilot based on my big, crazy Irish Catholic extended family. And then, oops, here's a kid that's trans. And what's everybody going to do? How are we going to move forward? And because I thought, well, if I can get somebody in middle America to watch this show, maybe they're going to open their heart just a tiny little bit. We just need a little crack. It's very hard to get television shows made. I don't know if you all know that, but kudos to you. But I thought, I do know how to get a feature made, right? And so I took the kernel of that pilot and made another 6-minute short. I am not in this one. That was a great relief, in fact. And I'm in the process of developing the feature with my producer. But what I will say is, I think some of the best advice I've heard about talking about things, hard things that have happened to us, is that when you're on the other side of it, then you can talk about it from a place of like a little bit of distance. That's one thing. Going into a meeting with, you know, execs at like a production company and crying your way through a story that you still have not figured out for yourself, that you're still processing, that's like trauma porn. When you're on the other side of it, though, when you're on the other side of it, you can see, like, because what I want to do as a writer is serve other people. I don't want to just verbal vomit what were my problems. I want to provide paths forward for other people who might be feeling something similar. And you can only do that once you're on the other side of it. Does that make sense?
Oh, absolutely.
Hearing all of you talk about the projects you've been working on, all of them involve other people. So I would love to know how you've found your most valuable collaborators, what makes them such good collaborators, and what advice you have for people who are looking to grow their network.
I have to name the ones who I like the most. Well, I'll just take it like where I find like my clients. I'm scrappy, so it's a little bit of everything. I mean, the advice I always give is like referrals is always number one. So it's like, think about your community already, right? You have friends, you have classmates, you have, you know, family, you have people, and just think of everyone as just a continuous extension. So, you know, USC obviously feeds people, you know, agents and producers, my clients, other writers have submitted me people. I've signed a few people from like programs or competitions. I go to Austin Film Festival every year. So, you know, there's a lot of different routes. I think, again, it goes back to finding someone who's got your back and wants to help you, and I think this is something else that can be useful, is like know what your ask is, like know what could help you push your stuff forward. So if you're trying to get a movie made and you're looking for a producer, like that's what people should know about you 30 seconds into the conversation, or at the very least by the end of the conversation with you, no matter what they are. That's how you can work a room at a networking event, right? Is if everyone you meet knows that you're looking for a producer, they might go to the next conversation, which might be a producer, and they're like, hey, you should talk to her, So I think that's just, I'm always like expanding it from beyond that. So friends are always telling me, you need to meet this person, or every party I go to, everything I do is a networking event in Los Angeles. Pickleball. Oh, I've signed someone from pickleball actually. Dates have turned into meetings. You never know. It never ends. Garrett, you're up.
My business partner is my college roommate. He didn't actually start off in the entertainment industry at all. He went into finance, and then 2008 happened, and so he needed to find another gig. And this was, we were both looking for things to do at the time, and this cropped up, and ever since then, it's been an adventure.
I love to work with people that I love. I always find that people that I just gravitate towards, like personally, are the people that I want to spend time with. They're also the people I want to argue with, because I know there's often there's a better recovery process with people that you love versus like people that you think are stupid. Right? You're like, you're dumb and we're done. But I love you, let's figure this out together, right? When you're navigating that kind of stuff. And so I think another really thing of value is to constantly, and this is going to sound a little cheesy, but constantly be going through, who do I know, who did I like, what are they doing, where are they now? Like, for example, the podcast CEO of the company, I met him when I was doing Straight Talk with Ross, with a podcast with Ross Matthews that I did 10 years prior. I met him for 5 seconds in a room, and then I thought, oh my God, that one guy from that one day. And so I called Ross's manager and I said, who was that guy? I can't remember his name, but I loved him. I felt a feeling about him.
You're so organized, Nikki.
My bag. My desktop. How many times have I emailed you and been like, who's that person that we met with the long hair that I kissed? And you were like, oh yeah. I just feel like when you feel something with somebody or feel something for someone, to follow that. And if you get the creep or the ick, just avoid it. Get away from it. I worked with someone, I remain nameless, that I knew was not a good road, and I continued because we had a history. History doesn't mean anything unless it feels good in your body.
I think one of the best ways to find your people is to be unimpeachable in your life. Like, be the person someone wants to introduce to someone. And if you just keep showing up and doing your best work, no matter what the circumstances are, like I was just doing a reading at NTS, I came right from there, of Arcadia, because I still act, and that's a theater company of mine. There were maybe 30 people in the audience, but like I worked my ass off on that material. Because A, why else am I there? And also, you just never know. So if you are the best version of yourself, matchmakers want to be successful, and they love a win, and they want to connect valuable people with valuable people. So that's my first part. And then my second part is like, I like to come at it from the other side. I like to keep track of what I can do for them. Like in a conversation, I will make a note. I'm like, she is a 5-year-old, she mentioned she was looking for a nanny, they live in Glendale, and I'm like, who do I know that? And then I'm sending an email saying, hey, by the way, like, be of service, because then your ask is going to be so much easier. And also, then you're in relationship as opposed to some sort of like transactional waiting for the in of when can I ask them to introduce me to the person. So those are my 2 tips.
I think we all know this is a very transactional town, and many relationships have just by the nature of the business, feel very transactional. And I think that even like when I'm talking to a lot of my UCLA students that are kind of just starting out, and how overwhelming the word networking feels like and how gross that feels. And I think it's about specificity, and it's what you're all saying, but it's like, I don't expect you to, after this, go out in the courtyard and really intimately connect with every person in this room. Like, that's not what networking is. That's the gross version of it. It's really about finding that one person, I think, for me, and going like, there's something about this person I really connect with, and I'm gonna have that authentic connection for 20 minutes, and maybe plant that seed, and then maybe 5 years later, that seed will grow into something. So I think it all comes back to that specificity and authenticity, and we
had that when
absolutely,
we met.
for
I
sure.
don't like harangue every person I meet to see my movie at the Burbank Film Festival, but I really dug her, and I was like, she's up to some cool stuff, and so that was why. You pick and choose, right?
And I felt that, right? If I saw her going around to every person going, please come see this.
Oh my God, I'm too
Please
shy
come
for that.
see
No
this."
way.
I would have not left my house. Absolutely would not have left my house. But because I really felt like, gosh, she's approaching me, not everybody in the room, that made me want to go see it,
We have a great comedy pilot that's based on the style of Norman Lear. Where do I find my showrunner? Because everybody likes it. Jennifer Warren at USC, with whom it's our EP. All of these people are, we love this, and you go, and? Other. So it's waiting for that and part. Where are my showrunners? I worked in the legal world for a long time. You used to be able to go down the list and find this judge does this and this judge does that, and you're screwed because that judge is going to throw you out. Okay, but there is no guidance. And Jennifer Warren and Mary Lou Miller are our EPs. Where are my showrunners? Where are they? There's your question.
Yeah, doesn't Mary Lou run shows?
Isn't Mary
Yeah,
Lou
she
a
does.
showrunner?
Well, then
She's
why
very
is it?
busy running hers. There's a line that you could feel, we were just discussing this, like, and you go, what? It's not going to go this way. Let's go back to Jennifer Warren. I love USC. I love what they've done. I love working with them. They were awesome. Where are they? And how do you find them? I went to Michael Burns, who is a friend of ours, for God's sake. And he said, Mary, this is just great. It just doesn't fit with our slate. And you go, what is the fucking slate? Where is it? Tell me. So it's a very difficult transition to have a really good show that everybody's raving over. David Greenwald wrote Grammy, wrote us a huge review. Mary, this is fabulous. And I feel like I'm in the and part. And I'm sure almost everybody feels like they get to the and part. And you are in the front of the room.
That's true. That is true. Look, I will say this. Just having had the experience of pitching a lot of TV and not being an established person, and knowing that someday I will be running my own show, but I have to study under an established showrunner first. No one's going to buy a TV show from me. Look, I knew that after CBS, and I had Eric Tannenbaum fucking attached to my show. The stars were aligned for my next steps, and it didn't happen. So I can go in with the best pilot script, and I can go in with the best script, but without that amazing showrunner, no one gives a shit. It doesn't matter. The problem is there's very few showrunners that are going to attach themselves to somebody else's script because they have their own stuff. So it is an uphill battle to find somebody that's like, I'm a non-writing showrunner. With Nikki's story, she got those showrunners because there was no script. They got to write that script, right? They came on to write that script and create that story. That is their script. So they weren't coming on. Yes, the story was there, right? But they got to create that. Yeah, Jason, go ahead. Sorry, I'll let you take over.
I would also say I'm gonna say something kind of tough here, which is if those EPs aren't attaching showrunners, what are your EPs doing? I had this with a client. They attach EPs who weren't showrunning, and I was like, well, what are they doing? You should be adding people to the project that are pushing the thing forward somehow. Now, there are producers that could be, maybe not have connections to showrunners, stuff like that, who helped you develop the project, who helped craft it, get you IP, whatever, right? Like I'm not talking about those people, but I think a lot of times people think that just attaching a name to something means something. And what's much harder is, as you're saying, like is actually sticking their neck out for this piece of material. Like, do they believe in what you have that they can call their contacts? And it might not be showrunners that they have connections with, which is okay, but then they should be attaching a production company, someone who has a studio deal, someone who has some, again, whatever it is, but something that is making this thing more appealing. And everything, like she's saying, like, it's just really hard to sell stuff. And so, you know, and I'm sure you probably are doing some of this, but you know, are you trying to get repped? Are you trying to win competitions? Are you trying to leverage other things to kind of build something up that gets noticed by the town? Because yeah, a lot of showrunners are gonna say like, so it's some writer that I don't know, never heard of. Maybe, you know, most people it's like they're not even gonna read it, but if you have a producer that has a deal or is an established production company or it's set up at a studio, once you start getting some of these things in place, I mean, I'm going through something that's set up at Sony and we're having some trouble, or at least like, you know, we're doing some showrunner meetings, but it's still challenging. It is a very competitive, there's only so many of them. And if they're not getting offers on something that's, you know, at the streamer or whatever, yeah, they're trying to develop some of their own stuff.
I also, like, oh my God, I understand and like so feel the frustration that you're feeling right now. I totally get it. I have so much sympathy for it. I think, I'm not saying you're doing this, but this is maybe instructional for anybody else in the room who might be. I think that when we have that project that we feel like is the thing, because so many people have said this, that, or the other thing has got traction here and it's stuck. One of the real pitfalls I have found myself, so I speak from experience in the past, and other creatives doing, is like, that becomes our only thing and we're like a dog with a bone. And so for me, I'm always asking myself, what else can I be doing that is not this project? What else am I writing? What else am I trying to move forward on? Because hitching your wagon to one star is a real recipe for disaster in this town. And the fact is that the town doesn't owe us anything. And as good as our property might be, it might not be the thing to go. And so I would just say to anybody who, and again, this is not directed to you, but I feel like it's an opportunity to say this out loud, this lesson that I have learned, is we need to be creating on so many different fronts, and that's one of the hardest things about being a creator. You just have to keep generating and not be, I think getting laser focused on one goal can be a trap.
Yeah, totally agree. I mean, I think we all have like 15 projects at any different stage of development or sitting there waiting to pitch. I mean, that's what you have to have, right? It's like being an actor and going, I'm gonna audition for one thing a year. And then hoping that one thing comes through. Like, you just can't. You've gotta be like this and that and this and, you know, and hope that one of those does. But I also think, and just one last thing, I think also congratulations.
Yes.
Because getting it to that point, getting someone like Mary Lou, who's awesome, interested and a part of your project is a win.
It's shot.
It's shot.
Done. John O'Hurley. Thank you. Thank you, everybody. Big time. Jeff Bridges doing the soundtrack. Great.
My question is probably for Jason. What do you look for when you go to Austin Film Festival? I'm not sure if you're coming to the Burbank Festival, but when you're going out and you're watching films, like, what do you look for? What's the thing that like impacts you, or maybe that you've heard from other people? What impacts them when they're going out and looking for other filmmakers? I don't know.
Yeah, I think voice, right? Someone who has something to say, and how they're saying it, right? Like, is there a real sense of style? Is there a real sense of, yes, craft is obviously important. It's gotta be good, but you know, you've found some way to talk about something in a very interesting way. you're bringing your own life story or life experiences into your work in a way that's really exciting and feels. I think this is the other thing. It feels fresh and different, and I know that's the thing we kind of like. It feels very intangible, but I think the reality is 90% of the stuff, even more than the stuff that I think is bad. There's a lot of stuff that's just like fine, and it feels a little derivative. It feels like I've seen it before, and it's like, yeah, a nice little cute movie or a nice little cute script, whatever, and then you read something that's just very different, and you get really excited. Or you see a film and that was just like, that was a ride, and I think that's what we're constantly craving is, I'm looking at something like, got it, this is who that person is, they're doing something really cool, and I'm gonna go out and be like, hey, this is what they do, this is what they write, I'm excited to introduce them to these producers, I'm excited for them to hopefully staff on these shows, or hopefully make stuff in this space, right? And so I think that's what, when the gears start turning, that I get excited.
To all of you and just your hustle spirit, like I feel sane. Well, actually, I feel crazy, but I feel like I'm amongst crazy people. So I feel seen, and it's just so nice to see like that it pays off, and it's the long game, right? So mad props to you guys, and super inspired. I've got 2 questions. So you were speaking specifically about knowing how to make movies. How much risk do you take? Do you see the process through? And sorry, I'm not familiar with all of your work, just some of your work. But keen to know, like, all of you actually, how much risk you take with each of your projects, when you put your own resources in, when you don't, that vibe, right?
Yeah.
And then for you, Jason, I'm keen to know the manager-talent relationship. Do you wait to be courted by talent? Does talent come to you, pitches you ideas? Or do you encourage, like, what's that dance between talent and you? Thank you.
Thank you for that kind acknowledgement. And in terms of risk, I have never put my own money into my projects. Well, it's not, I mean, I put my own money in that I'm working for free. Right? For a long time, I'm working for free, writing, or I'm working for way below scale, for instance, when so I am putting my own resources in, but I have not been financing my films. I've been lucky to find other people to do that. Is that what you meant specifically about risk? Was it money? Is that what you meant? Yeah, I mean, I guess I think in terms of the risk is that I do work for years and years and years on something that may not get made and I'm not getting paid on. And I'm finding other ways to make the money to make my rent. So I think by nature, being a filmmaker is a high risk endeavor. You are not guaranteed an ROI, actually, and often when it comes in, it's pennies on the hour. So that's the kind of risk that I take, but I like living a lottery kind of life. If you put me in an office from 9 to 5 for a regular paycheck, you might as well just like kill me, right? So that's the way that risk comes in for me.
And everything's a conversation, right? We're kind of going back and forth. But, I'll be like, hey, have you thought about trying to write something like this? Do you have a sexy thriller idea? Do you have a procedural, right? Like sometimes, depending on what the client, their genre and kind of part of the marketplace that they work in, I'm like, hey, maybe this is a type of sample that might be helpful to have in your repertoire. But a lot of times they're coming with a specific idea because the amount of inspiration and stuff you're going to have to pour into it, there's only so much that's going to come out of me telling you to write something.
It's interesting about I was just thinking about like Target, right? And maybe a couple of you could speak about this, because I know as a writer, I've certainly heard like, when you pitch things like, nobody's buying this right now, right? And fill in the blank, right? Nobody's buying fill in the blank, and then 2 months later you see 10 shows about fill in the blank. So I think it can be hard as an artist sometimes to walk that line, right, of listening to your reps, of listening to showrun, of listening to whoever you're pitching to, of going like, nobody wants to see a musical about, old people in, I don't know, the Bahamas. And I'm like, that's my dream piece, and I'm gonna fucking write it. So like what is the line, right, of going like, because I do think there is something to the effect of if you keep chasing the target, you're always going to be chasing the target. And there is something to be said for going, I know I was told that nobody's buying this, but I'm still going to write this because this is my story, and maybe somebody will buy it, because I'm sure many of the shows that are on were told no one's going to buy this, and then somebody bought it. Have you guys had experience with that? And then also, I'm sure, Jason, you're over there smirking and want to tell me to, I don't know, fuck off or something, which is totally fine. But I'm just curious the response to those stuff.
Well, we actually get to see a lot of people go through the evolution of their ideas, well past just, whatever ends up on the screen the first time we see it. And so what was remarkable to me listening to everybody's stories is we've got somebody who started out with a short that's now doing a feature, and somebody who's done a podcast that became a show, and I've seen so many people come through our doors whose vision didn't align with where they ended up, and it ended up being more successful than they had originally anticipated because they were flexible and they learned how to kind of read the room and where they were. Very early on, we did a feature film called Burn, and it's a documentary about firefighters in Detroit. And it was originally intended to be a mini-series for PBS. Their funding got cut, they lost their sponsors, but they had shot for a year and they didn't know what to do with it. So they decided, well, we'll recut it into a feature. They went and they got on Dennis Leary as an EP. They got some sponsorship from some firefighting equipment manufacturers to finish out post. And then rather than try to just sell that outright, they said, we've developed these relationships over time with firefighters, equipment companies, etc. We've got a big, big book of contacts here. And so they decided to go partner with local fire departments around the country and say, hey, we're going to do a sponsorship for you guys. We do a movie night with you with this film, and half the proceeds go to the fire department, and half the proceeds go to the film. And firefighters were like, sweet, that's great. And nobody says no to firefighters. So they packed those houses, and 5 cities turned into 10 cities, turned into 100 cities eventually, and it became a huge thing. And all because they were willing to kind of pivot from that original vision. So if it's not working one way, or you have an idea that is only that you see as a show, as a movie, as a comic book, it could do better in another format, another medium, if the audience fits it better.
Question is about the money, right? So my sister wrote a short, we did some crowdfunding, but we still need more money. And so what are your suggestions for where to find it?
I unfortunately do feel like the expert here. That is not a pat on the back. What's your short about? Is there do you have any special interests?
Yeah, it's genre. So there's she's a vampire. There's also another creature, and it's based in Africa.
Okay. So off the top of my head, I don't know what the connection is, but I'll just give you an example of what we did. For my short, it was about a relationship between a white woman and a Iranian man, and their differences, and then how alike they were. And so we were able to talk to Muslim groups who might want to, toss $500 our way or whatever, because of the way I was portraying this character in the film. So I would say think about what the connections are in your film and who might be interested in seeing it getting finished. And then I would be super, super specific about the ask. It's we need X amount of dollars to pay our editor. People, want to know where their money's going. Since you've already done the crowdfunding, this is the advice I would give. Okay. And then a lot of getting money is actually, if you can find talented collaborators who will maybe cut their day rate, I feel very passionately about paying people. I never ask people to work for free. We all got to eat. But you might find an editor who's way above your pay grade, who loves the story so much that they're willing to come in for X amount less, and that essentially is giving you money.
Right.
I'd say just get super creative with it. I don't know, have a bake sale. Do whatever you need to do.
Good evening in Burbank. It's just wonderful to be here. And one of the things that I want to say is thank you so much for bolstering the idea of creating female characters that are not perfect, that can be very flawed. You just gave me an idea to completely switch gears and work on something completely
She's
different.
taking pigs in space. She's attached, story by
That was my
I
idea.
wanted to get to the premiere.
Miss Piggy in space. Anyway, a question is maybe this is a good way to end, but how did Michelle Williams become attached to your project? And do you have any juicy gossip?
Finally.
What a great question. Michelle Williams was in and out quite a few times due to pregnancy, COVID, strikes. She lives in Brooklyn. It was set in LA. There's a lot going on. But what kept bringing her back was that she discovered the podcast on her own. So she found it. And so did our showrunner, Liz Merriweather, discovered the podcast from a friend of hers that had given it to her. So it wasn't this hard pitching thing that had happened. They had sort of organically discovered it. So I got very, very lucky in that sense. And in terms of Michelle, she had listened to the podcast and she couldn't, I believe, this is kind of gossipy though, I'm just saying. Don't tell anybody. She had said, I don't think I can do it right now. We didn't know that it was for personal reasons. She was having a baby and everything. We didn't know, so we thought, oh, is it too much? Didn't want to play. A lot of the feedback was these women of our age didn't want to play someone dying of cancer. Mm-hmm. And a lot of them were mothers, right? And trying to navigate giving life and being full of life and also playing someone that's very, very ill. And I think that was a hard balance for a lot of actresses to handle. And I think when you're at that level, you can pick and choose what you want to do. The beautiful thing about Michelle is that she just couldn't let it go. And Liz Merriweather had seen her, I think, at an award ceremony and went up to her and said, where are you, like with all of this? And Michelle said, I can't let this go. Like, I can't let her go. And she had fallen in love so deeply with Molly and with the female friendship. So I just got so incredibly lucky that someone like Michelle was willing to crack herself open and to play a messy character that was dealing with life and death, and she so beautifully did it. And there were a lot of other people, a lot of other names, but I think it was really meant to be hers because she found it. And that sounds so easy, but it wasn't. I mean, to get from point A of Molly and I deciding we wanted to do something to the podcast actually being made, I mean, she had to live and die through all of that. It wouldn't have happened any other way. And so life and art gets messy sometimes, but you just kind of have to write it a little bit. But yeah, that's my juicy gossip, is that she said she couldn't let go of it. And last time I talked to her, she was like, I think I'm going to see a psychic and try to communicate with Molly. Because I'm like, I know what she says. I was so excited about that. So that's my gossip. Don't tell anybody.
That's a really good one to end. I'm not sure that we beat the psychic and the Molly story. So, you guys, thank you for your thoughtful attention and questions, and thank you all for giving up your Sunday night. And just for being so brilliant and such beautiful examples of staying in it and telling your truth. And I know the short amount of time I've gotten to know you, Jason, for what a champion you are of artists. And even just the fact that you're here tonight shows that you are a champion for the people that you represent. And Garrett, I had no idea what you did, so this was awesome.